I can't believe you committed suicide. I cannot believe you committed suicide. How could you have done this? How could you have committed suicide?
Hi, I'm Ian Alley Seals, host of A Dangerous Podcast. Join me every week as my fearless co-host compatriots and I dig into and review some of the worst movies ever made. That's right. Tune in, strap yourself down, and prepare yourself, because this is a dangerous podcast.
You are tearing me apart, Lisa!
Hi there, I'm Lloyd.
And I'm John, and we're from Pint O COMICS. As we dive into your favorite pop culture topics, we may just
Occasionally
use language that could be considered
globaloney.
What? No, I mean...
Oh, foul.
Exactly. Offensive.
No doubt. Crass.
You bet your ass.
Sophisticated.
What? No. Anyways, you get it by now. It's mostly just
gutter talk.
And one more thing. Watch out for spoilers. Sometimes we drop them like trousers. You've been warned.
Listen in.
Well, it's Pint O COMICS time again, kids, and I'm John, and with me, per always, is the Manster, a.k.a. Lloyd. Lloyd, what's going on?
That's me. Yeah, I'm not feeling all that great today. You could probably hear my voice. I'm downstairs, isolated in my basement for about 10 days.
So wait, Lloyd, you're putting it out there for me, so I'm going to pick it up. You don't feel so great. You don't sound so great. You're isolated for 10 days. Do you have
dedicated to the podcast?
You have the coof, Lloyd?
The coof?
The coof.
Yes. Yeah, I have the coof.
You got the vid. Well, kids, not every COVID story is a bad one. Lloyd is fighting it out. There's two hosts to Pint O COMICS, so it 50-50 chance that it was going to happen to one of us at some point or another. So let's just say I'm glad it's you. You're a good, healthy specimen. I'm a slightly overweight guy, and by slightly I mean largely. So I'm avoiding it like the plague that it is. But no, you feel all right? Everything is other than
I feel all right. It feels like a cold.
Okay.
All
basically,
right. That's to me what it feels like. Unfortunately, for so many others, it's a lot more than that.
Yeah,
but
that's enough to focus on that.
Enough of that. But
we want you better, so get better very soon. So this is the third week of our Forgotten February event, I guess you can call it, that we're doing. Every week in February, we're having the guys from Forgotten Entertainment guesting on the shows. So far this month, you heard the two mics from Forgotten Cinema on our Pipe Movie Invitational, where we talked about American Graffiti. And then last week, you heard Mike Butler, who's also on Cracking One Open and Two Player Bros. We talked with him in a Triple T episode about Batman Forever, and you know by now that Lloyd and I think that's a total trash movie. And Butler, I think Butler did he say treasure? Well, he liked it. Let's just put it that way. He liked it.
I'm pretty sure it was a treasure.
Yeah. And this week we have a dip. We don't have a mic. Okay, so if this was Mike Whelan, it would be getting pretty boring at this point. But luckily we have a Pat. We got Pat Whelan with us. Pat is the co-host of another of the Forgotten Entertainment shows. He's the co-host of Yet Another MCU Podcast, a podcast that takes a look at all the movies in the MCU from the very beginning, and it's actually wrapping up pretty soon. Pat, what is going on? How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me back on the show, guys. This is great.
Yeah, absolutely. Your only other appearance on our show was on an impromptu episode we did a while ago about the future of movie theaters. Real quick, 45-minute episode. And honestly, I got a ton of great feedback about that episode. People, I think people come to Pint O COMICS maybe for the humor or the I guess the joking around and that kind of stuff. But we actually kind of had a serious talk about some stuff that's going on. And I think some people were like, hey, these guys actually have opinions on things.
They like the serious stuff too.
Yeah, that was great. It was a great talk. Great talking to you and Field. So how are you involved in Forgotten Entertainment?
So I am the co-host of Yet Another MCU Podcast, which you mentioned. We dive deep into the Infinity Saga of the MCU. Also serving as a producer for Forgotten Entertainment, bringing on new shows that we have a couple launching soon, helping them with the marketing and all sorts of just getting them out to the market and getting them out to new audiences. And hopefully, fingers crossed, we could also bring in some sponsors on that. So that's also my job, is trying to monetize what we do and make this something that we could do for a long time. You're
a fiscally responsible guy, aren't you? I think even if I didn't know what you did for a living, I look at you, I talk to you, and I'm like, this is the guy. Like, if I didn't know you and I saw you in a bar and I was like having a problem with like my 401k, right? I would look at you and go, I think this is the guy to ask questions to. Do you get that a lot? Is that like, and that's not enough. That's not offensive. You just look like a smart guy that knows a lot about what to do with money, right? Am I correct?
I hope so. Thank you for that. I appreciate that confidence in me. I hope that I appear that way. It's funny that you mentioned the 401k, because my sister and I were texting yesterday and she's like, there's some stuff that they should teach in school. Like, what's a 401k? And that's exactly what she just said to me. And I started like sending her some things back. And I'm like, no, what? I got to stop. She needs to call her guy. I can't be the guy for that. So I guess, yes, I guess that fits me perfectly.
All right.
Well,
yeah.
Patrick, you'll be happy to know I started my 401k in my 20s.
I did as well.
It's a good plan.
Me too, actually. And Lloyd's in his 70s now. So
he's going to tap into that.
He's got to tap into it. I mean, I'm going to use words I don't know if they're right for him, but I'm sure there's some rollover. There's got to be some annuity.
I've had some rollovers. Yeah. I've got Roth IRAs, regular IRAs.
My wife listens to this podcast, thankfully for her. And I got to say, if you ever have the chance to meet my wife, Patrick, she is a human resources manager, but she's also very fiscally responsible. You two could probably have a conversation I'd never want to walk in on. It'd probably be the most. It'd probably peel the paint off the walls with the boring levels, but I'm telling you right now, you guys could probably talk for 6 hours about stuff like that.
And see, this is the Venn diagram that we got, because she obviously could talk to you. Then I'll come on here. So, and then we'll talk about the, I don't know.
Absolutely. We'll talk
annuities.
Roth IRAs. All right. So what's one of the, let's just say there's a great show coming out on Forgotten Entertainment this summer that you'd like to tell people about. If you had to pick one, give us one that you would tell the people about.
Ooh. I guess we could go ahead. I don't know if we could break this news, but I'm really excited for On the QT with you, John, and Lloyd. And it's a breakdown of the 10 movies of Quentin Tarantino.
Yes, it is. And we talked about it on the first week with the mics. So yeah. Anybody that listens to Pint O Comics, if you enjoy us week by week, starting in the last week, pardon me, of May, you can start checking us out all the way through the summer, week by week, with different guests from the Pint world. So Scary Larry will be on one. The Forgotten Cinema mics are going to be on a couple, and we're going to talk about each one of the 10 movies of Quentin Tarantino. So that it's going to be a lot of fun, and it's awesome to be partnering up with you guys. You guys have got a great product and a great thing going on over there.
Yeah, we're really excited for it. We're excited to get it started. We got a lot of fun marketing stuff. Hopefully, we can do with you guys and just get it out there. But I'm looking forward to that one.
It's going to be awesome.
As are we.
Yeah, we are super looking forward to it. All right. So this is a 100 proof episode. If you know the 100 proofs, we deep dive into a comic arc, a graphic novel, whatever it may be. And we'll get into that in 1 second. But Patrick, this is technically his first real guest appearance with us on an episode we had planned out. So that means that the Manster has his 5 questions. Uh-oh. Manster's going to hit Pat with 5 questions.
Uh-oh.
And he's getting ready for it. So Manster, take it over. Start it off.
All right. In a localized annuity. No. No, your first question is Scarlet Witch or Vision?
Scarlet Witch.
Care to elaborate?
Elizabeth Olsen is fantastic.
I know somebody else who really is hot for her.
I'm going to tell you right now, she might be the only thing that's going to make me watch any more of that show.
Have you watched any?
I watched the first 2 episodes. Look, this, maybe we could do another show at another point, and I don't want to drag too much into this, but I understand what they're going for. I understand, because everybody keeps, if you complain about this show, everybody keeps saying, well, you got to understand it's deeper. There's something going on. I get that there's something going on, but the first 2 episodes are so committed to being what they're, styled after a 50 sitcom and a 60 sitcom. And there's so little of that other deep laying, like, what is the real story here, that I don't know. I literally found myself after 2 episodes saying, I don't know if I'm going to keep going on this. Pat, did you feel that way?
I felt the opposite. I like the show. I'm not even really worried about the mystery. I had so much fun with the 2 actors because they were eating it up like so well. I thought Paul Bettany and I thought Elizabeth Olsen did a fantastic job. That I just, we turned it on. They were 30-minute episodes. They didn't really feel like 30-minute episodes to me, at least. And I had fun with the characters more so than there was no plot development really in either of the first 2 episodes. It was just them committed to, like you said, this theme of these 50s and 60s shows. I wasn't really worried about what happens going forward. If the next couple episodes are a drag and they don't really develop it, that's when they might lose me.
Yeah, I'm going to give it a 3rd, and I'm hoping they start to inch towards whatever the actual, idea is behind it. And again, you're right. They were both great. I did think they were great. Elizabeth Olsen she's fucking gorgeous. It's so hard not to she's on the screen and it's like there's in the second episode, Lloyd, she's dressed in like a magician's assistant outfit, kind of, like a one-piece bathing suit for half of the episode. And it's just, she's so good looking. You almost forget that her sisters are those two, the Olsen
twins.
Yeah. Yeah, she definitely got all the looks in that family, but okay, all right. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to hijack that. Second question.
Well, if only I had some free time, I might watch that show.
Yeah, really.
All right, John Williams, Superman, or John Williams, Star Wars?
Star Wars.
Ooh, that's a bold choice.
Bold. Hey, they're both pretty awesome. So.
I think Superman's got the one big one, and it is that great classic score orchestra theme, but Star Wars is, he had so many. You get the Binary Sunset, you get the Imperial March.
As I was reading these issues that we're going to cover today, I read the whole thing to the Empire Strikes Back soundtrack. It was amazing. There were times when they're doing Vader's theme and he's all of a sudden, on the page. Is pretty awesome. All right, next one. When Harry Met Sally or Sabrina?
When Harry Met Sally.
And can you figure out the connection here?
Harrison Ford and Carrie Fisher.
There you go.
Yeah.
Harrison
Harrison Ford's in Sabrina, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I have never seen either.
You've never seen Harry Met Sally?
I'll tell you, here's something you're going to learn about me, Manster. You might not know this, but you're going to learn it about me. I am almost completely, and I don't want to use the word chick flick, rom-com. I don't watch them. Yeah. I have almost no interest in them. And there's classics that people know, that When Harry Met Sally, I know the orgasm scene in the deli because everybody knows that. If you ask me anything else about that movie, I couldn't tell you. Sleepless in Seattle, never saw it. You know why? It's one of those fucking movies. I don't care. I'm not one dimensional. I don't need to see, it doesn't all have to be Schwarzenegger blowing shit up. But when it comes to romantic, they have to be exemplary. Okay. There's a film we've talked about on the podcast before. Sir John's a big fan of it too. 10, 12 years old, out of Ireland, called Once. This is it's a fantastic musical romance, but it's played real. And I could watch that movie all day long. 500 Days of Summer. I love that movie. I saw it. It caught me in a weird, those are anomalies. 9 times out of 10, a movie like When Harry Met Sally, I will never have seen.
I think you might like that one. It's pretty good.
I'm not saying that. Yeah, I'm not saying it might not be funny or it might not be good. It's just it's never going to draw me.
No, I hear you. The Rancor or a Wampa?
The Rancor.
He's a nasty looking dude, huh?
I feel kind of bad for the Rancor,
Yeah.
Especially when the Rancor keeper comes over and he's got his head down and everything.
Yeah.
He doesn't know. He's just a hungry animal, But then again, the Wampa is too. Boy, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Good one, Lloyd.
Good one.
Yeah.
The last one's pretty easy. Mace Windu or Nick Fury?
Ooh. I got to go with Mace Windu.
Oh, all right.
Oh, all right. The MCU guy goes with Mace Windu.
Yeah. Nick Fury hasn't gotten that much to do in some of these movies. Mace Windu had that awesome, the Jendi Tartakovsky Clone Wars series where he just goes off.
Yeah, that was a great series. Not a lot. I have that on DVD. Not a lot of people have seen that one, or at least talk about it anymore. It was the first Clone Wars cartoon, probably 5 years before the one that everybody knows, and it was maybe 4 or 5 episodes. It was a weird little thing. It wasn't a full season. It was kind of like a mini-sode type thing, I think.
Yeah, I think they were like webisodes or something that like short, like you said, like short, maybe like 3 to 4 minutes that they played on Toonami in between as like the interstitial content, before something came on. And yeah, they were, and each episode was just like a mini battle, and that's where they introduced Grievous, but they didn't. It just kind of died out when Disney took over.
They should have left Grievous there because that's a stupid character, but that's just my opinion. So there's been a lot of Star Wars talk in Pat's questions. We didn't say it before, but the 100 proof today, we are talking about the 2015. I guess you would call it the second series of Marvel Star Wars. It is we're doing issues 1 through 6 today. The whole thing lasted 75 issues in its first volume. So this, I guess, would technically be Star Wars Marvel Volume 2, because the original one was the one that came out in the 70s and lasted through the 80s. Then Star Wars went over to Dark Horse for many, many years. And then once Disney bought everything on Earth, eventually Marvel ended up regaining the license to Star Wars and being able to publish it. So in 2015, this actually came out on January 14th of 2015. So we were about 6 years after, almost exactly, to when this came out. This was written by Jason Aaron. If you listen to some of our 100 proofs, you know Jason Aaron from Scalped, which we talked about with the Forgotten Cinema guys. So it's kind of a coincidence.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. He also, he's known for Wolverine with Marvel, Thor. Right around this time, he was probably Marvel's like biggest writer. He was like, they go through the periods where you have the Bendis period, you have this guy, that guy. I think right now they're probably like Donny Cates might be their big guy. Jason Aaron was their big guy for several years, and he was writing Astonishing X-Men, and they pitched it to him, and he dropped Astonishing X-Men. He said, or I think it was Amazing X-Men it was called. He dropped it, jumped on Star Wars, big Star Wars fan. And then to make it easier for him, for the first 6 issues at the very least, they hired John Cassidy, who is, John Cassidy is essentially, if you're not familiar, if you're not a comic reader, well, first of all, thanks for sticking in this long on this episode. If you're not a comic reader, John Cassidy is one of these like rock star comic artists. He's one of these guys that doesn't have to do much.
Is he really?
How much John Cassidy stuff do you see?
Well, yeah, you're right. Because I honestly, I don't really know much of John Cassidy. Other than this, I know he did a run on Planetary.
Planetary.
Astonishing X-Men.
Astonishing X-Men with Joss Whedon.
Outside of that, I don't know anything.
Captain America in the early 2000s, right after 9/11. There was a guy named John Nay Reber who wrote it, and Cassidy did some of the interiors, and he did the covers. The covers for that Cap series are fucking bananas. He did them in like what do you call those? Like the propaganda posters and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And they're incredible. There's one where Cap is smashing his shield into the ground, and it's breaking like the ground. He's unreal. He's a very clean artist, but he's like, if you want to put him in that category of a Jim Lee or a guy that doesn't have to do, John Cassidy isn't going to be the fill-in artist on The Flash next week, or you know what I mean? Like, this is a guy that you bring him in to start a book. He does 6 to 12 issues. He goes off, he draws his covers, and he's more than well compensated. A couple years ago, when we went to Boston Comic Con, he was there, and his line was by far the craziest. And it was right around the time this book came out, and I was looking for the number. I couldn't find it. Maybe Pat knows it. Maybe you know it, Lloyd. But this book, when it came out with like 40 variants, I believe. Do either one of you remember how much it was?
I don't remember, but yeah, I know it was high.
It was berserk high. And this is part of the reason why this book sold 1 million copies. Yeah. Number one selling book of 2015. In Forbes magazine, they came out and said this was the top selling book of the last 20 years. I think it took over, or at least jumped up from X-Men 1, the Jim Lee book. So this book, and part of the reason is because they sold like 40 different fucking covers. Yeah,
there's one of those 40.
There's one. Wow. Here is, I have 3 myself. Here is my original. That's the first.
Yeah, I got that too. Plus a Loot Crate one.
Yeah. So yeah, Marvel came out hard. You got to remember 2015 is also the year. What happened? What happened at the end of 2015, Pat? Do you remember? Star Wars
Awakens.
Force Awakens comes out. So they're ramping up, and this is like the first part of their salvo is putting this book out. Laura Martin is the colorist on this. Now Cassidy drew this, penciled it, and inked it himself. So Laura Martin comes in. She's worked with Cassidy before on Planetary. She worked with him on Astonishing X-Men. She also was a colorist for CrossGen many years ago, and for the very short-lived Virgin Comics imprint they did years ago. She's a 2-time Eisner winner, so she's a pretty good colorist herself. Yeah, so that's kind of the nuts and bolts. What do you got, Lloyd?
Now, I'm sure we're going to talk a little bit about the art, but I don't want to forget, I thought the art was amazing in this. The drawings were amazing, and I think the coloring was amazing, except there's like a huge problem that I have with the art in this book.
What is it?
Did any of you pick up on this? There's nothing that stood out like as weird.
Not that I can think of off the top of my head.
Just flip through a couple pages. The up close faces, the colors are awful. The shading on them looks plastic and fake. It just looks so goofy. I can't stand it.
Oh, I see what you. I think it's
Everything
like,
else is great, but the faces are so bad.
So if you go to, I think it's like early middle of the book of the first issue where Han's got the blaster pointed at everybody. I think that's what you're talking about. He's got those like raccoon dark shades under his eyes.
Yep, there's stuff like that. Yeah, there's a lot of Leia that does not look good as well. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. And you can see it throughout the whole entire run.
Oh, okay. I see a little bit of what you're saying. There's the panel where Han and Leia are looking around the corner and he's kind of shaded a little bit weirdly.
Yep.
But what I do like about Cassidy's art, I mean, first of all, if we want to get into the art real quick before we start talking story or anything, he's a super dynamic action artist, right? Like, the
Chewbacca scenes were amazing.
He is a great visual storyteller. You don't feel muddled when you're reading his books. You feel like, panel to panel, you understand what's happening. I'll give you what you say there, but you know what I'll tell you I do appreciate about Cassidy's art, and I don't know, Pat, if you agree with this. There are some artists out there that when they get, and there's some that are really good. I'm failing to think of one off the top of my head, but there are some that when they get a property like this and they draw a book, their number one priority is for the faces to be as photorealistic as possible. And it is impressive where you look at a book and go, my God, that almost looks like it's a fucking a picture, not a drawing. Mm-hmm. For a cover, I like that. When you're reading it in a book, I don't know, Pat, does that distract you?
It does. So I've been reading, not to sidetrack out of this, but the new U.S. Agent series that they just released. I think they're on issue 2 or 3 now. But that's the same type of art where, I want to see it a little bit more comic book like versus where they're trying to be like super
a little more raw.
Look like raw and look like people, and I'm just like, this is taking me out. Plus the story isn't great, but it's taking me out of paying attention to it. So yeah, I like the Alex Ross covers. I mean, he's a beautiful artist and everything, but his covers are phenomenal. And then I want to make sure that when we go into the story, it looks, I guess, more comic booky.
Yeah,
it's kind of my take.
Almost slightly more cartoonish.
Yeah.
Like when I read the Cassidy stuff, Lloyd, do you agree? You could tell that's Mark Hamill, but it's not It's not Mark Hamill like you took a picture of him. It's like someone drew Mark Hamill really well, but also drew it into a cartoon version for a comic book.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
The only thing I think that maybe these faces needed were a little more line shading, not so much color shading. I think that's what it needed.
When John... Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. I was going to say, I wonder how much of the rights they had to these actors and these characters, though. If that was,
he nailed some of their faces just right. The what do you call that? The little lip curl that Harrison Ford has. I mean, you could tell a mile away that's Harrison Ford on the page.
Yeah. I don't know how that works with likenesses, like what they have to worry about, or because Star Wars is owned by Marvel, is their image owned by I don't know. Again, this is a financial question, Pat.
Yeah.
This is actually a question for you. If you don't know the answer now, dig into it, get back to us.
Some follow-up.
Yeah, we could do an addendum to this episode if you'd like.
Absolutely.
This is Skywalker Strikes. This is the first 6 issues of the new Star Wars series. Why don't you give us the bumper sticker of what this book is about and where it takes place in, because here's the other important part. The EU got destroyed when Disney took over, and apparently Pat was a fan. So the EU, the extended universe or expanded universe, for all you Star Wars fans out there who love these novels and comics and Heir to the Empire and all that stuff, when Marvel took over, they said, we're done with this. When Marvel and Disney took over, we're done with this. It's over. No more EU. what we're going to do now is we're going to call those legends, right? They could have happened. They could not have. The way they're doing it is they're cherry picking. If you pay attention, they're going, oh, I liked this idea. I like that idea. Oh, Grand Admiral Thrawn, that character's cool. He comes. The rest of the shit stays. They decided to then start over and say, from here on out, everything we're going to do straightforward, novels, cartoons, and everything is canon, including these Marvel books. So these Marvel books do act as a bridge between stories. So that's where I want you to go pick up a Pat. Tell us where this takes place and the general idea of these 6 issues.
Yeah. So spoilers for anybody that hasn't watched A New Hope. This takes place after Star Wars Episode 4, New Hope, after the 1977 movie, in which the rebels won. They blew up the Death Star. Luke blew up the Death Star. And so now they're working with the Rebel Alliance. Han, Leia, Luke. They're going to disrupt and blow up a weapons supply factory on another planet. At the same time, Vader's trying to figure out who this pilot was that blew up the Death Star. So he has bounty hunters. He has Boba Fett hunting for Luke. Luke is trying to figure out really where he fits in the world of becoming a Jedi, trying to figure out his training, going back to his beginnings. He heads back to Tatooine to go to Obi-Wan's hut where he hopes to find some answers. We're on the other side of the world. It's very Empire Strikes Back-esque, where Luke goes one way, Han and Leia go the other way. Han and Leia, again, trying to find ways to disrupt the Empire and ultimately get caught and trapped on a planet. And that's where we leave things with a little bit of a cliffhanger in Han's backstory.
Yeah.
I don't know if you
hit them all.
I was going to say, I don't know if you feel this, Master, but he just gave out of, 50 guests, he just gave the best bumper sticker anybody's ever given of anything.
That was not word for word, but it's my bumper sticker.
Very succinct. Thank you, Pat.
You're welcome.
Yeah. So this takes place it's 0 ABY. This is what they're calling the timeline now. After the Battle of Yavin, which is the Death Star battle from the first movie. And yeah, like you said, we start off on the very cool sounding Simoon 1, which is the biggest Empire munitions factory, weapon factory in the galaxy. And we start with our squad of Luke, Leia, Han, C-3PO, R2-D2, and Chewbacca going undercover to try to destroy this place. I was reading a little bit with Jason Aaron. He said his goal with this book was he wanted to write it just like he would write the Avengers, or if he wrote JLA, he considered this a team book. And it really, the first couple issues do read that way. You could easily switch this out, all the characters out, and just say the situation was a little different, and you could switch out to the Avengers very easily. The first thing I want to ask each of you, I'll start with you, Lloyd, and see if how you felt about this series. We're going to rate this much later on. Do you think that the originality in this story and kind of the what's moving us forward eventually to The Empire Strikes Back outweighs the feeling of Star Wars Greatest Hits? And by Star Wars Greatest Hits, I mean, as you read this, you could definitely sense the feeling that Jason Aaron, a lifetime Star Wars fan, has been given the toy chest. So when you're reading it, all of a sudden there's an AT-AT, all of a sudden there's speeder bikes. You know what I mean? I don't want to say fan service, but do you feel like this story made out?
It lives in the Star Wars universe, so you got to show those things. It's an engaging and fun story. It continues, the adventure that everybody loves Star Wars with. I think I appreciate that.
All right, Pat, yeah. Do you feel the same way, or do you at any point feel like it became kind of fan servicey?
I actually, the whole time I was reading it, I felt like it was a little fan servicey. I was, I had a question for you guys, because I didn't look it up, but I wanted to know if this started out as a 6-issue miniseries essentially, or 6-issue limited series, and then let's do 69 other issues, because it felt like he was trying to get everything in the first 6 issues, where it was the guard costume that Leia wears that Lando ends up wearing in Return of the Jedi. The Falcon gets totally demolished, which we know is going to happen in Empire Strikes Back. The speeder bikes, the Boba Fett thing, going back to Tatooine was a little bit more fan servicey than memorable in this book. So I was a little distracted by the fan service.
I also think, Star Wars hadn't been at Marvel for 20 years?
20 plus, yeah. 20,
and
25,
I'm sure execs at Marvel, they're like, oh, this needs to have this in it. This needs to have this in it. Make sure they see a speeder bike. Make sure you see a AT-AT.
Yeah.
So I think he had no choice in probably that. He had to hit certain beats.
I agree with you, Manster. I did enjoy the story, and I do feel it went a certain way. But as I read this, and I read this 6 years ago when it came out, as I read it this time, I definitely was more aware of it. Felt like they were trying to jam Star Wars greatest hits and everything. So C-3PO gets blown up,
Yeah, all right, I'll give you that.
C-3PO gets blown up.
Harkens forward.
Boba Fett, who's got 4 minutes in 2 movies time, shows up. Because everybody loves Boba Fett.
Hey, that's fine with me. Give me.
I want all the Boba Fett in the world too. But you know what? Why couldn't that have been IG-88? You know what I mean? Like, hey, here's a character that we only saw standing at one point.
People know Boba Fett more though.
If you're a Star Wars fan, I think you know a lot of this stuff. And I'm not arguing with you.
But you know what? I don't think this book is geared toward just hardcore Star Wars fans. This is going for a broad audience.
Yeah.
You're talking Marvel, Disney, that they got big arms. They want everyone in there.
All right. I feel that. I respect your opinion. I respect it. This thing, it's chock full. There's some really great moments. Again, what were some of the moments here? I'll start with Pat. Was there any moment that you want to bring up in particular? I had kind of highlighted John Cassaday's. I always say his name Cassaday.
Yeah, well, it's A-Y.
It's A-Y, and then it has the A. It's like it'd be Cassidy any other way, but to me, it just sounds like it should be Cassaday. So
that's what I think too.
I'm going to continue that way. If I'm wrong, too bad. What was a moment, Pat, that you could pick out of this 6-issue run here that you would say you could attribute to being a very fine John Cassaday visual storytelling moment?
Ooh, that's a good question. I really like the scene. I think it's actually episode 1 where Vader just comes and just wrecks all the stormtroopers and they're flying up in the air. He's got the saber out. You felt the presence of Vader in that scene. So that was definitely one of them. And then even the Luke on the speeder bike going back, flying through the planet of Simoon 1. I felt that was very good John Cassidy in the moment, in the art scene as well. Like in the action scene, not the art scene, in the action scene. All
right, Manster, anything that sticks out to you?
Yeah, I really enjoyed the Vader taking down the AT-AT, single-handedly.
Yeah.
That was just some great Cassidy stuff. I think I'd already mentioned before, there's just some fantastic shots of Chewbacca, just some Chewbacca battle scenes. He's such a badass, and, he gave him his due there.
I would honestly piggyback on you and say that if I had to pick a panel or a scene out of these books that I thought was so fantastic was, in the first issue, they have Chewbacca set up as a sniper and he's going to take out whoever the Empire emissary is. And it turns out to be Vader, which they're not expecting. And it's a great moment where they tell him to take the shot on Vader. And Vader, obviously senses it and just bats the bolt out of the sky with his lightsaber.
That was great.
It's always great to see. One of the things that I love about even though I don't like the prequels and I'm not super crazy about the second trilogy, is I like the fact that also with the comics, we've been able to expand on what we can see the Force do and what we can see Jedis and these, in the first 3 movies, there wasn't a real Jedi. Right? Luke is never a Jedi in the first 3 movies till the very end. Vader is a half robot who's slow and cumbersome kind of. Obi-Wan Kenobi is an old guy. We didn't see until Phantom Menace when they're using the lightsabers to melt the doors on the ship in the beginning.
Yeah.
And then they're moving in super speed and stuff like that. We didn't see a lot of that. So to see stuff like that where Vader knocks the bolt out of the sky, and the other part that I absolutely loved in this was when Vader essentially takes Luke's lightsaber away and then uses it to kill everybody. It's just flying around the battlefield and it's murdering all of the slaves that Luke just freed, who would have been better off if they stayed in the cage. Probably they would have been stuck working for the Empire for a long time, but he frees them and he gets them killed by Vader. I love that bit where the lightsabers they show it in the background, just like going through people and cutting people in half. And that was fantastic. I think that was one of the best things they could have done on a book like this, is to go out of their way to get somebody like Cassaday, who's an incredible visual artist.
Yeah, I wanted to bring up a negative thing, something that I thought was very weak writing and wondered if you guys had this had like made an impression on you as well. So when Vader arrives, he says something like, "I can sense the Jedi pilot that destroyed the Death Star is here." And then when he's face to face with Luke, literally both of them have lightsabers in hand. He doesn't know it's him.
Well, he
I don't get that at all. That's not the Vader that I know.
He didn't say Jedi pilot. He said the pilot.
Yeah, I know.
I don't think
he sensed the pilot that destroyed the Death Star.
Right, but I don't think he knows that it was. I don't think that just because Luke might have a lightsaber meant that to him it was him.
Well, if he sensed him from real far away, doesn't he have a bigger sense of him if he's right in front of him?
All right. I don't know.
Bad writing.
Pat, do you think that's bad writing, or you think that might just be?
So I'm looking at it again, and I'm just reading through it, and I think Vader just says, "Who are you?" Not as a like, I don't know who you are. I don't know that you're you're not the pilot. I think he just wants to know, like, who actually are you? Like,
no, he pushes him aside, or he says he doesn't even want to waste his time fighting him. And at the end of that, he says, "Tell me who the pilot was that destroyed the Death Star." Like,
oh, you're right. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
All right. Well, the negative
I
one. I
love Jason Aaron.
Well, look, again, nobody's perfect, right? Nobody's perfect. Jason Aaron's a great writer, but
Tell me Jason Aaron's not perfect.
Hey, actually, I wanted to bring up another. It's not so much an action moment, but another great, I guess, through Jason Aaron writing and through Cassidy's art, another great moment that I thought was there's a lot of mirroring in Star Wars, like someone gets their hand cut off in this one, right? That happens all the time. Luke cuts off someone's hand at one point. One of the things I thought was great, even though it referred back to a movie I don't want to really think about, Revenge of the Sith moment in this is when Vader gets Luke's lightsaber and is about to cut his head off with both lightsabers. He's got his arms crossed. That's exactly how he killed Count Dooku. And that was, again, Revenge of the Sith was, to me, the worst of those three movies. I hated it. But, yeah, I know Attack of the Clones for everybody. I hated Revenge of the Sith. But I thought that was a great little callback to, whether I hated the movie or not, is a memorable scene, because that's where Anakin's humanity really starts to go downhill, is when he has no problem killing a dude, even though he thinks it's for just reasons. Is there any storyline, Pat, in this? Like I was saying, like I was about to say, there's a bunch of different things going on here. We've got Darth Vader going to see Jabba the Hutt at one point. We've got Boba Fett showing up. We've got Luke going back to Tatooine to find Ben's house. Was there any storyline in any of this that you felt could have been cut out or was superfluous in any way? Because I know there's one that I totally thought it just didn't present itself well, and I didn't care.
Yeah, so I kind of have two more moments than exact storylines, but the first one is Vader going back to Tatooine. I wanted to see that to be a little bit more momentous of him going back to Tatooine. We know that he hates sand; it gets everywhere. It's gritty, and now as a robot, he's going back to Tatooine, and it didn't seem like it just didn't. I don't know. It didn't seem to have that weight that it should have had. Right. And then the second moment was Han and Leia just ramp up the flirting they went from 0 to 60 in the span of 2 pages, which that's why I thought that this was like a 6-issue miniseries and not like I knew eventually that it was, but I thought maybe it was originally pitched as like a 6-issue miniseries. So that's why he was trying to get everything into the 6 issues. But if you're going to go 75 issues and this is the flirting they're doing on issue 4, what do you do for the rest of it when you know they don't get together until the end of Empire Strikes Back?
Lloyd, anything in particular that pushed you out, like that you just, plot wise, not like a little line here or there, anything that you just found like, I'd rather not read this?
Nothing that I'd rather not read. But, to echo what Pat said, I wish the Vader visiting Jabba the Hutt had a little more weight to it. It was fun banter. It was kind of fun, listening to the Jabba voice in my head talk to Vader. But I don't know. It didn't really seem to have much weight.
I did like the bit where Vader says to Jabba something about Salacious Crumb makes a noise. And he's essentially like, if he does that again, I will be like destroying it. Yeah, so that was a good moment. It just seeing Vader interact with Salacious Crumb. If I had to pick one thing that I felt was just, I don't know, it kind of drew me out of the story, was the whole subplot about Han's wife. That it's very low in this 6 issues. She pops up a few times. She appears to be a bounty hunter. and she's looking for Han Solo. At the end, when she finally finds Leia and Han, she claims to be his wife. Spoiler alert, if you go past this, I've read it. She's not his wife. I won't get into how it is, and I just felt like, to me, the one thing I did like about it was, I do agree with Pat, where I could tell you, I could see this being a 6-issue mini, but that strand ties it further into the 7th plus issue. But it just, I don't know, it just didn't work. I kind of felt like a lot of once Luke took off to Tatooine and Han and Leia were on their own, I just kind of like lost interest in the Han and Leia story. Han and Leia story it's very much, it works on the screen. It works in comics too, but there's a dynamic about those two actors that make it work even better. And when you're reading it and it's just them constantly going back and forth with each other, like, Fuzz face and Nerf ball, whatever it is, it just doesn't always translate as well to me. But okay, here's the question. I was thinking about this earlier today. Boba Fett, right? We all know, we've all watched The Mandalorian. Okay. You've seen Mandalorian season 2, Pat?
Yes,
Okay.
I have. Yep.
So now everybody's on Boba Fett's tip because now he's back. And a lot of people are like, well, it's interesting because he's got his own show starting next year, but he's kind of showing these good guy qualities almost, which I think a lot of people think. I don't necessarily think it's good guy qualities. I think he had a debt of honor to the Mandalorian and he fulfilled it. But if you wanted to read something that would tell you right off the bat, this isn't a good guy, you got to read this, because what does he do? He murders a fucking kid.
Fucking murders a kid.
Yes.
So anybody out there who is a Mandalorian fan and is looking forward to the Book of Boba Fett, if you for a second think that this is going to be a show where he's a good guy, and if they do it, fine. But my Lord, he straight up murders essentially one of Luke's, I guess, kind of friends, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of his
I don't
high
know
school
why that
buddies,
kid was in
basically.
a bar.
Yeah, he's hanging out in the bar and he says, yeah, I know who Luke is. We call him Wormy. And to get information out of him, he, right in front of everybody in the bar, he throws him on top of a table. He stabs him with a bunch of knives, like pins him to the table. And then as he's leaving, when he gets his information, he in cold blood shoots the kid in the head. So I just wanted to put that out there. Yeah. I did think it was great to see Boba Fett in the book, even though I do feel like, again, he was one of the elements that was a little bit shoehorned in. But, we do get a pretty cool fight in the last
6-armed guy or whatever that was.
Oh, yeah, that's right. He cut one off and I broke 2. You want me to make it 3? Yeah. And then he gets in the last issue, he gets a showdown with Luke, which kind of adds a little bit to, the Empire Strikes Back, because there's that one moment in Empire Strikes Back where he shoots at Luke in the hallway. And, you're always kind of like, wow, that'd be cool to see these two guys go at it. Mm-hmm. And you kind of got to see them go at it a little bit. So do you like moments like that, Pat, in a comic book, in an adaptation comic book? Do you like moments like that kind of add flourish to an already existing story? Or do you just separate it? Like if you think about New Hope right now and Empire Strikes Back, reading this comic, is this what happened now in your head for sure? Or is this like, this is a version, I'm cool with it, but this isn't my headcanon?
I think it's a little bit of both. Like, there are some moments in this, and I actually want to read the whole series, but there are like some pieces of it that I'd love to see them doing more of this, these rebel jobs that get them, eventually isolated on Hoth. But there are a few other moments, like you said, the Boba Fett one seems shoehorned in there just to because somebody had it on a Tumblr page before and said, hey, this would be cool. And so they say, oh, what if they met before? And so I think there's that fine line. And this series is right on that line the whole time through of, there's some moments that are really great. And then there's some moments where it's just like this Boba Fett one, the fight scene's awesome, but I didn't need to see it. And I guess that's kind of my issue with some of this stuff is it's great. It's cool that it's here, but I don't necessarily need to see every step of the way, every little detail in between New Hope and Empire. That's what they end up doing with this.
All right, man. So you feel the same way? No, it does. Absolutely.
In this one in particular, I don't know. It's actually kind of hard to say because it does kind of affect what you think of something else, which I don't want it to do that. I want it to feel like it completely makes sense and it always should have been that way. So that's what I like, if they're doing retroactively stuff like that. But in a case where you now have to go back and start thinking other things, then I don't like that. And that's another reason why I really, like yourself, I did not like the whole Han Solo wife storyline at all.
Yeah. Yeah. It comes out of nowhere. And obviously it leads us into, issue 7 and beyond. but I've read Seven and Beyond, and it doesn't, the character's not bad. She's in it, but again, here's one of the problems with books like this is that even though if you're reading this, what happened, there's so many questions they leave, like where you got New Hope, you got Empire, you got Return of the Jedi. These things happen between these movies, and you got to wonder, like, why don't they ever mention this character? You know what I mean? Like, why they don't mention her in Empire, because it's 40 years before they invented her. But it's like they just throw these things in there, and then they're thrown away by the time you get to the next story. So yeah,
I don't really know what happens to her afterwards. I did read the whole Jason Aaron run.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've read it, so I don't really remember. But she's in the book.
Like 25 issues, right? With just Jason Aaron.
He did 38, and then
38. Oh wow.
Kieran Gillen. Is it Kieran Gillen, the guy that did Darth Vader?
Yeah, Kieran Gillen did.
Yeah.
Kieran Gillen took over from that point to the to 75. Or no, from that point on.
Charles Soule.
Yeah, Charles Soule took over at the very end, I think. Is how it went.
I forget.
Yeah. It went 3 different
We'll have
writers.
to fact check later.
Yeah, we'll fact check. Don't at me, motherfuckers. Well, I guess that's actually a good question, Patrick. Do you actually normally read licensed comics normally, or do you avoid them? Even licensed comics, would you normally, like, let's say you're a fan of Buffy the Vampire Slayer? Would you read the Buffy comic, or do you want to just keep it in its own thing? It's a TV show.
So I did. I'll use the other example, Firefly. I read the Firefly Serenity comics that they've done. Those to me seem, because they happen after the fact. So there's not going to be any of that moment where it's like, hey, why didn't they introduce this character in the movie? It's like, because this is picking. We're not going to get any more TV shows. Sorry for anybody listening that wants more Firefly.
Yeah,
we're not getting any more Firefly. But these for the most part, they take place after the fact. So it's, they're fun to watch. They're fun to revisit the characters. I actively avoided the Star Wars run. I didn't need that in between stuff. First of all, I'm not a huge fan of the licensed ones. I think Firefly is the only one that I really dove into. And that's because a buddy of mine said, hey, go check this out. And so I didn't go get it myself. But for the most part, I tend to avoid the licensed runs because I like the individual show as is. Like, I don't need this to make my viewing of A New Hope or Empire Strikes Back better.
Right.
And that was my problem with the sequel trilogy was, for the most part, you needed to go read comics. Like, why C-3PO had a red arm? Like, first of all, I don't care.
Right.
Second of all, like, if it's that important for him to make a dialogue comment about it in the movie, don't put it in a comic book. Don't put it in an ancillary piece of content that I got to go chase down somewhere.
Right.
It's not my kind of stuff. Now, this was an interesting book, and I'm glad I read it, but it doesn't change my viewing of A New Hope or Empire.
Lloyd, are you normally a fan of like licensed comics, or?
No, I don't read licensed comics. I can't even give you an example of one that I have read. I'm sure I've read one or maybe two, but I can't even think of any that I read.
You're also an indie guy, so you'd rather read original stories for the most part.
Yeah, like I don't read Star Trek. I don't read Orville. I don't, whatever other stuff is out there. I don't read that.
All right.
I just read the stuff I want to read that just exists in comics, and that's it. Other than Star Wars, I guess, I do read Star Wars comics.
Well, I mean, yeah.
Maybe that's the one example.
All right. That's fair. I'm 50-50. It depends on what it is. I'll give it a shot sometimes. I did do like the Buffy books when Joss Whedon wrote them because it, like Patrick said, it was all after the last season of the series. So and it was also the original creator. So you kind of felt like if they were going to do another episode or another season, this is what you're going to get. And I kind of do like the idea behind that. So I guess, I'm sorry, go ahead, Pat.
Oh no, I was going to say, speaking of license, because I forgot about this one, I will add the Power Rangers series they've been continuing for a while. They did a Mighty Morphin Power Rangers comic. The art was the piece that kept me around. The more I read it, I was like, oh man, I grew up with the Power Rangers. I was 6 when the Mighty Morphin one came out, just to date myself here. So it was a big thing for me. So I watched it because it was what I knew. But the more I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. How does this fit into the time here? You're throwing in new characters, and then I kind of just shelved it.
That book was very popular. It still is.
Yeah.
I think it just broke off into 2 other books. Like they rebooted it and started it over again. Well, this will age me. Mighty Morphin Power Rangers came out right after I graduated high school. Like that summer is when it started, and I wasn't working, and I used to watch it. And the cheese factor was outrageous. for a 17-year-old kid. But, you know, I was like, okay, this is interesting, but never followed up with it, never watched the movies, any of that stuff. I kept hearing through the comic store, like how great this comic is. People loved it. And I looked at one of the collected editions at one point, and I thought about it, and I didn't, because I realized, you know, no matter how good this isn't my thing, and it probably isn't going to translate well for me, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Star Wars, I think, is more broad. So I think more people can jump in on this. More people are going to know who Luke Skywalker is than know who the Red Ranger is. You know what I mean?
Right.
But I do think there's more of a broad appeal. So I guess that is a good question for you, Pat. Now, me and Lloyd have talked about kind of going further. Based on these 6 issues, and you kind of did play your hand before and say it, but based on these 6 issues, does that give you enough impetus to say, I want to continue reading this thing?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the action was good, that the writing was good. You know, there was a couple moments we picked on here and there, but I think it's one I definitely would dive into, at least, you know, give it the next arc and see how I feel after that.
Are there any moments other than what we talked about before that maybe aren't strictly action-oriented moments that really stick out in your head? Lloyd, is there anything like a character second, something that happened in it that like really stood out to you?
Oh, I'm trying to think. Not really. I think we hit everything, you know, that jumped out to me.
I could tell you the one that I thought was badass. It was how the book ended, was when Boba Fett goes back to, what is it? The Executor, the Vader Super Destroyer. Is that where you're going to go, Lloyd?
Is that the one with the line, or maybe that was earlier? I recant what I said. There was a line where somebody in there said something about, you know, no one good ever came out of Tatooine or something. And there's a picture of Vader just sort of looking off in the distance.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a nice little moment.
Yeah. They also set up on the Tatooine stuff real quick before I get back to what I was saying. They set up at the end of the book when he goes to Obi-Wan's house and gets the book, you know, the diary of Obi-Wan Kenobi. Once this story arc ends, I don't know how many, if it was like a certain number, but like every 3 or 4 issues, they would do an issue that took place with Obi-Wan. If you remember that, Lloyd, they'll do 3 issues of the next arc. And then there's 1 issue of an Obi-Wan story. And they called those the Book of Obi-Wan Kenobi. Yep, so they actually piggyback off, and those were really fucking great. There were some really, really good ones. But the moment I was going to say was when Boba Fett goes to Vader's ship to tell him that like Luke got away. And at this point, you know, Vader doesn't know who Luke is. And, you know, Boba Fett tells him, and Vader's doing his classic Vader shit where he's staring out the window, like away from you.
Yep.
And he says to him, he says, I didn't get him. He got away. He goes, but I did get a name, Skywalker. And Vader, just standing there staring out the window, starts to force crack the glass between him and fucking outer space. That was a badass moment. That was cinematic to me. I felt like I was watching that. You know, it was very much like that moment in the end of Empire Strikes Back, when Vader's looking out the window and the Millennium Falcon takes off in a hyperdrive, and he just like is looking out the window and then he turns and walks away. Like you just feel how he's just like inside going, fuck. No, he just doesn't do that. Pat, was there anything character moment wise that you really liked a lot that stood out?
That one, I was going to actually call out on that one. That one was a great moment. That's a better hook to me than Han's wife. Like, I'm glad that they ended on that cliffhanger, sort of cliffhanger.
Absolutely.
That cliffhanger more than the wife itself. Yeah, I think that's the big. I like that moment a lot, and I think the other moment too was when Luke tried to save the refugees, prisoners, whatever they were on Simon 1. That, you know, he opens the door and he's, you know, come with me, whatever. He's trying to do the right thing. And so it was this character moment for him because he's trying to let them out and then it just fails in front of him.
Yeah.
That sets him back a little bit.
We're so used to, I mean, I think this is where it kind of is nice to see in these comics. We're so used to going from Luke being a farm boy in New Hope to destroying the Death Star, right? And then we jump to however long Empire is after, which I've never really clear, 2-3 years, something like that.
Yeah.
And he is now this confident hero, right? He's not a Jedi yet, but, you know, he's much different than he was in Star Wars. You know, the first time you see Luke in Jedi, even though he's, you know, hanging upside down in the Wampa Cave, essentially, he's a different person than he was. And what I liked about this was in these stories is that you get to see Luke still doubting himself. He doubts himself all the way through Return of the Jedi. That's kind of the part of his character. You still get to see that even though this kid blew up the Death Star, even though he's the hero of the rebellion, he still feels like a fuck up in a lot of ways.
Yeah, he's still got humility.
He still has total humility, and I like that. I think Jason Aaron as a writer does a really good job of kind of humanizing his characters. Again, we talked about Scalped. There are so many flawed characters in that book. But Pat, have you ever read Scalped?
No, I haven't. I know
Right.
Mike did it for the last one of the Pine 100s, but no, I haven't read it yet.
Jump in on that. Don't be shy. It's fantastic. He's a
Got some
fantastic
great
writer.
Aaron right there.
All right. Is there anything that you guys that I maybe have missed out on bringing up? Is there anything you guys want to bring up about this? Is there any Star Wars stuff you want to talk about in particular that I might just not be pulling out?
There's one particularly memorable frame for me. It might have been like the last page of one of the issues where it's in the bottom right-hand corner. You see around part of maybe the building that they blew up, the weapons building.
Yep.
It's like round and it's got some radiating parts out. And right in the middle, you see through and you see Vader walking, and his cape is flowing and it's speckled, and it's just a one fantastic image. I loved it.
Yeah, I mean, it's Cassidy art. There's a ton of fantastic images. Again, the moment where Vader gets off of the Imperial shuttle, and you don't know who's coming. They do a great job of conveying the fear that like the guy that runs the place now has, because like if you fuck up in the Empire, that's one thing, but if you even remotely fuck up when Vader's around, shit's hitting the fan. You know what I mean? Yeah. We know that from Captain Piet and all Admiral Ozzel and all those guys. This has been issues 1 through 6 of the 2015 Star Wars reboot. Now I'm going to ask you this, Pat, scale of 1 to 10, Star Wars, where are you at? Like just overall fandom.
Ooh, shit, that's a tough question because I'd say 8.
8, okay.
And
are you like Butler? Are you a big fan of the prequel trilogy, or
I was absolutely a big fan of the prequel. I was 11 or 10 or 11 when the first movie came out, when Phantom Menace came out. So like it was the big thing. I saw it in theaters. I got the action figures, bought them right after the fact in the store next to the theater. So that will always be in my memory.
All right. And how do you feel about? We kind of mentioned it a little bit, the sequel trilogy.
That's the problem I have with them is Force Awakens, meh. Then Disney released the trailer where it's like, Carrie Fisher had passed away and they did the behind the scene things. And I'm like, fine, you're going to get me back. I get it. I'm coming in, I'll watch it. And then it was meh. And then they did the same thing again. I'm like, okay, fine. Like I can't quit you basically. And so the sequel trilogies, it's what happens when you don't have a plan.
Okay. All right. Are you, because I just want to know, because we're talking Star Wars, I think it's only fair. Are you a Last Jedi hater, or are you someone that like sees, you're not hurt by it, as I like to say with some of the fans?
I think The Last Jedi is the best one of that trilogy.
Wow. Listen to this guy. Pat, I am in the same boat as you. I've been saying it for years. The people that are hurt by The Last Jedi, I don't get it.
No.
We had a lively discussion.
About 3 years ago, whatever it was, we had a very lively show, our review show on that, where it was a fight between us because some of us really were hurt by it and some of us were not. Okay. All right. I'm glad to hear you say that, because they did prove it. And I gave it a good review when I saw it, because the fan service levels captured a bit of my heart, but man, that Rise of Skywalker was a fucking mess.
Oh God.
That is, again, I got it. So I own, and I'm not a fan either. I have Force Awakens on Blu-ray, which I bought like when it was on sale. I bought Last Jedi, and then for Christmas, someone got me Rise of Skywalker. I put it on my Amazon thing. I said, if I'm going to have 2, I might as well have all 3. And I'm literally about to probably in the next few weeks have like a, not all in one day, but like watch each one of them. And I'm like, I don't know, man. I wasn't a big fan of Force Awakens, but it just seems so much stronger after seeing Rise of Skywalker. Rise of Skywalker literally feels like fan fiction that a bunch of like kids threw together, and somehow it got like a $18 million or $18 trillion budget and put on the big screen. I don't know how it happened.
18 trillion.
It was I know what you're talking about, the fan service moment when all the ships come out at the end.
Dude, I honestly,
you get chills.
I cried. I'm not kidding.
Yeah.
When not like fucking going crazy. When they pulled Luke's X-wing out of the water, that moment and the way the music swelled, I got like fucking teary-eyed. And when the Millennium Falcon and every other ship that you've ever known in the Star Wars universe came to save the day, I literally, my heart skipped a beat. But then I had to like kind of sit there after seeing the movie and recognize the shit sandwich that all like, you have a shit sandwich and it's bread and shit. But it's got like a fried egg on it and you like fried eggs, right? So like someone says, you've got to eat this shit sandwich with a fried egg. You put it together and you bite in and you get a piece of that delicious egg and you're like, oh, I like egg. But then you bite further and you're like, but it's still a shit sandwich. You know what I mean? And that's how I equate that movie was, that moment was a fried egg or a good piece of cheese, but it's encompassed in excrement. And yeah, like I just wanted to gauge that. And I wanted to know if you felt the same way. Because when I left the theater with Rise of Skywalker, I even told Manster, I'm like, I really enjoyed it. I had a good time. I don't care. But that's one of those movies, the more you think about it, you're like, was there a screenwriter in the house? Like, how did they put this thing together? Why is the Emperor still alive? And like, what is happening? Like, this is why I really enjoy The Mandalorian, because I feel like it's the first Star Wars that I can actually enjoy without questioning too much in the last many years.
Yeah.
That's how.
So you talk about coming out of Rise of Skywalker. I'll give you a fun story. It was the first movie my girlfriend and I saw together. So we started dating in August. There was nothing in the theater. We go see Rise of Skywalker. And, she grew up, she loves Attack of the Clones because she was, 10 when that movie came out. It's all about the pretty princess on the planet. Sort of love story, I guess, if you want to call it that. But so we go and we're sitting there and then we both get up. We're too afraid to say anything because we don't want to be the one that says this was terrible. And then some guy comes walking out of the movie. He's like, that shit sucked. And so we both looked at each other like, yeah, it did. So it made us feel a little bit better because that was going to be the one. Is this going to be the thing that drives us apart? This terrible, shitty Star Wars movie.
Are we going to break up over the Rise of Skywalker? That would be the saddest story of all time. We
did not.
All right, good.
We both thought it was awful.
Manster, I guess I've never really asked you this before. Star Wars fandom, where would you rate yourself?
Wow.
Everything into account, everything you've ever seen, or enjoyed.
I've been all over the place. When I was younger, of course, the original trilogy, was those were my years. And it was huge for me. I loved it. When the new trilogy came out, I was probably married. What year did the new trilogy start?
Well, the prequels or?
Yeah, I'm sorry, the prequels, yeah.
99.
Yeah, I was already married. And we watched it, and I thought I enjoyed it, the first time. But then they didn't age well for me. But I was still looking forward to the final trilogy. And I didn't hate the first one as much as you guys did. The second one I had a really love-hate relationship with. And then the third one, I fell asleep both times I tried to watch it. So overall, I might have gone from like an 8.5 down to like a 7 with just that. But when you add in The Mandalorian, as cheesy as some of it is, it's still a lot of fun. I like the, the Rogue One movie, the Han Solo movie. I appreciated those. Those were good. Yeah. So it probably brings me back up to around a 7.5. All
right.
And I'm a collector. I still like to collect the figures.
Oh, well, yeah, you got a Captain Phasma helmet behind you. So.
Hey, that Captain Phasma helmet, I got that before anybody knew who Captain Phasma was.
Well, hey, look,
it was Gwendolyn Christie. She's an awesome actor. And the helmet is badass. That's why I got it.
Look,
I'll probably display it up there.
I don't know if I have any around me, but
lame as a character as that was.
I collect Stormtrooper figures. They're the lamest characters on earth, but they look cool.
Yeah. Well,
and
there too.
I absolutely get it. So I don't want this to be too much of a tangent. We're gonna rate Skywalker Strikes. Sorry, we're going on a little Star Wars tangent, but that's okay. If you're listening to this episode, you probably like Star Wars anyways. But I wanted to bring something up to you, Pat. I have a question for you. Now, you have a keen analytical mind. You're a smart guy. So this is an argument about Last Jedi that's always fucking bothered me, and I want to ask you if it bothers you as well. Everybody always says that Rian Johnson ruined Star Wars. Everybody always says that he went out of his way to fuck J.J. Abrams' story over and all this stuff. What I never understand about the people that say this is, do they not realize that Rian Johnson was hired by Disney? And if Disney didn't want The Last Jedi to ever come out in that form, they could have just said, this is not acceptable, remake it, rewrite it, whatever. I mean, that is just plain fucking logic. Am I correct on that?
I think yes and no.
Okay.
So first off, it may have gotten too far for Disney to say no, like to say no to certain points. Yes, they signed off on the script. Yes, they signed off on the actors. You know, we could bring in all these people. We could do these things. How do we, handle this, the Carrie Fisher thing? What do we do? They signed off on a lot of that. But when they started to see the pieces of it together, I think they realized this isn't going to work. And we've already, said December 2017, this thing's coming out. We need to hit that number. And if we tell people that we have to go back and do thousands of reshoots, they're already not going to like it. So I think I think they made a calculated judgment in saying, fuck it.
Okay. But see, but my problem is that I think the part that people have the problems with in that aren't really anything visual or it's the script, right? Script. They read the script. They knew Luke Skywalker was going to act the way he did. They knew that he was not going to be, the hero Luke Skywalker that everybody got to know from Return of the Jedi, and I guess the EU and all that stuff. Where is the problem in that? Like, that's where I never understood why the fandom gets so mad. You cannot be mad at Rian Johnson. He wrote that, but the difference. So you got 3 movies there. This is devolved into the trilogy, by the way, but that's all right. You got 3 movies. You've got J.J. Abrams' first movie, which is essentially a reboot of the original Star Wars. It is a remake with just different characters taking place in the same universe. It's a follow-up, but he just took all the same ideas and threw them in, right? So it's kind of unoriginal. Then you got The Last Jedi, which is filled with a lot of original ideas. There's a lot of stuff going on in there that, yes, there's some really bad stuff. The Canto Blight, terrible.
Yes.
Again, I don't think anybody on Earth should have driven Kelly Marie Tran off the internet, but her character was terrible. That's not her fault. That's a written fault. You know what I mean? Yes. And then the third movie is an incomprehensible, like, fucking mess. Like, so would you rather have, like, I don't know, maybe it's Star Wars fandom or toxic Star Wars fandom, but wouldn't you rather have like a movie that's trying to do its own thing? Lloyd, answer me. A movie that's trying to do its own thing, The Last Jedi, over an unoriginal piece of shit or an incomprehensible piece of shit. Yet again, somehow we've gotten back to a shit sandwich here.
Yeah, no, I'd rather go for the thing that wants to do something different.
Yeah.
It's all
door number 2.
Door number 2. I think I'm not going to speak for Lloyd, but I think me and Pat are on the same wavelength that The Last Jedi is probably, in terms of just of a movie, the most solid of the 3 of those movies. Now, again, that's not saying it's a great movie because none of them hit it out of the park. Mm-mm. But like, I know a lot of friends that love The Force Awakens, and I don't fucking get that. I don't know. The Force Awakens to me feels like New Hope and the prequel trilogy had a baby. And that's what that was.
It's New Hope 2.0.
Yeah, it's New Hope 2.0. Absolutely.
If you look at them structurally, The Force Awakens is the most concise movie, but it's a movie that's already been done. Episode 9, Rise of Skywalker, is the most, like you said, incomprehensible mess. Last Jedi has structure issues throughout the whole thing. This epic ride to nowhere, this Canto Blight side mission, everything. But there's some really great gems throughout it, especially for some of the characters. Like, people complain about the force powers. We've been wanting to see real force powers for 40 years.
Right.
And he gives it to us. And then you say, no, that's not how the force works. It's like, okay.
Sure it is. You know why? Because it's in a fucking Star Wars movie.
Right.
You can't use your EU novels anymore. It's in a Star Wars movie. So he's established that at this point. I agree. All right, let's get back. Let's score this book. All right, now that I'm all hot and I'm all bothered, we're going to leave Pat last.
Why don't you give us yours? I want to hear your hot and bothered score now.
Oh my God. All right. So Star Wars, number 1 through 6, Skywalker Strikes. You can find it at a local comic book store. Go to BoomTube Comics in Southington, Connecticut if you want to check them out. If you don't feel like going out due to COVID, online retailers. But if you do look it up, it's Star Wars Skywalker Strikes. That's the name of the first trade with these books in it. Yeah, those 6 issues. We score things on a 0 to 5. Quarter scale is available as well. I am going to say, when I really get down to the nitty gritty and think of this and separate it from the rest of the series, which I've read most of, not all, admittedly. I think I read up to about like issue 55. I own it all. I'm going to give this. I'm going to discount a little bit for the wife stuff I didn't care for. I think in the end, when you put together Aaron's writing and the art, I'm going to give this a 3.75. This is a 3.75. I like the story. I liked rereading it. I had a good time with it. I liked it when I read it the first time. So 3.75. Manster, what do you give it?
You're a little bit higher than me. I like the writing. Automatically anything with Jason Aaron starts pretty high for me. Like I said, it is fun. It's engaging story. It's got some really neat things in it. Some stuff pulls it down for me. The wife storyline, the coloring of the faces really bothers me. But the Vader stuff is great. I like the Chewie action. For me, it's a 3.5.
All right. Let's see where Pat falls on this. Is he going to bring our average? We got a good average right now. We got a good average. If Jason Aaron or John Cassidy is listening to this, which I severely doubt, they're probably, wondering why we just went on a 20-minute tangent about shit sandwiches. And, they're probably worried about Pat's rating right now, bringing them below a 3 in any way, shape, or form. So Pat, what do you think?
No, we'll absolutely not bring it below a 3. I'm kind of on the same page as you guys. Some really solid moments in this, some really good art, some cool moments between the characters. Vader ends it in a great way, but it does have some unnecessary fan service moments to, the rest of the Star Wars universe, and some of the storylines, like the wife, just drag it down. So I'm with Lloyd, 3.5.
Good score.
All right. 3.5, 3.5, 3.75.
Respectable average there.
That is. If this was Star Search, they would be moving on to the next round. If you remember. All right. So this has been Forgotten February, week number 3. Next week, come back because this is the episode I haven't edited yet. I'm looking forward to editing this episode of Pint O Comics, the least of any of all time. It is our Mike Butler Pint Movie Invitational, the 1990 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And all I can tell you about this, because I don't want to give it away, is that it was a very interesting discussion with some real headbutting and some quietness and some this one was very interesting. I'm looking forward to editing this, and I'm already going to call this one maybe I don't know, I don't want to say I won't say worst episode of Pint ever, but boy, man, we had a hard time talking about this movie. Who liked it, who didn't? Come back next week to find out.
I think Butler owes us.
But Lloyd definitely thinks Butler owes us. Let's put it that way. Pat, why don't you tell everybody what you have left for MCU at this point? Approximately. I know you've got 3 weeks left or so.
Yeah. So for Yet Another MCU Podcast, we're wrapping up the Infinity Saga. We probably have at this point, by the time this episode comes out, the final 3 or 4 movies of what we dub Phase 3.2, but the back half of Phase 3, because it stretches into like 12 movies versus the other Phase 1 and Phase 2 are 6 apiece. So at this point, it's probably Captain Marvel, Endgame, and Spider-Man Far From Home.
Oof. Sorry. I'm sorry.
That's rough.
Oh.
Yeah, we made a note in our Captain Marvel. We've already recorded the Captain Marvel episode, and we made a note at the end. We were like, if you like this, that's fine. The movie structurally was sound. There was some moments in it where we didn't like it, but it just like you said, like felt like unnecessary fan service or like. So to go back to what we were talking about before, that's the moment where they talk to you about how Nick Fury gets his eye scratched out.
Oh Lord!
Nobody needs to see that.
No,
just leave the mystery open. And so that to me is that kind of, I don't care. I don't need this. And so it absolutely pisses me off. So that this one lost a lot of points. Captain Marvel did, not for the structure of the story, but just for the unnecessary, like they built a foundation or they built a frame under the foundation in the MCU that was entirely unnecessary.
It totally shits on I think in Winter Soldier, the great line where, he says, I lost this eye for this country. And it's like, I think it's Winter Soldier. And it's like it's like a really solid moment where you feel it. And then you find out it's a flirking alien cat. It's like, come on.
He says, the last time I lost, you want to know how I got this eye? It was the last time I trusted someone.
Right.
And so
right.
he was talking to Cap. Cap is obviously going through a lot in the Winter Soldier film. Nick Fury realizes that Hydra is infiltrated. So it plays really well in that movie as this like conspiracy theory driven thriller. And then, like you said, it's the fucking cat.
Yeah. So stupid. All right. Where can everybody find you on the socials? And if they want to go back and listen to all of your great episodes from Iron Man straight through.
Yeah. So if you want to listen to the episodes, find us wherever you get podcasts. YouTube, we're on YouTube. We've uploaded them all up there. The Apple Podcast, Spotify, Amazon Music, wherever you get podcasts, we're on there. You can check us out at forgottenentertainment.com/Yet Another MCU Podcast. And then on the socials, we're mainly on Instagram, but we're going to probably try to get a little bit more push on the Twitter, but we'll see what happens there.
Are you the one that I argue with on Instagram occasionally about your?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. I wasn't sure if it was you or Field. I think
I'm the only one that handles the Yet Another. So we're at Yet Another MCU Podcast on Instagram and at MCU Yet on Twitter.
All right. And it is a great show. And again, Forgotten Cinema, Cracking One Open, Nomcast, all great shows, good friends. Pat, thanks for coming on and talking about this Star Wars book with us. It's been a lot of fun. Manster, do you want to tell everybody where they can find Pint O Comics?
You can find us at pintocomics.com. Again, anywhere you get podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, we'll get, we put out weekly episodes. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. You get podcasts and a lot of good G.I. Gary videos. Click on that bell for notifications. On Facebook and Twitter, it's at Pint O Comics. On Instagram, it's at Pint_O_comics. And see ya.
See ya.
Thanks for having me, guys.
It's over, Johnny. It's over. Nothing is over. Nothing. You just don't turn it off.